Hello and welcome to the DataPains channel. Today I want to discuss real-life data mistakes. I want to show you what I have encountered during my career as a data engineer, DataOps professional, working in the data space in general. And trust me, there are many mistakes that I have made that could have been avoided very easily. Equally, there are some things that is out of your control and that you can't predict or manage. And I just want to go through some of these things with you, and hopefully it can help you in your decision making. So let's jump straight into it. All right. So maybe surprisingly, the first thing that I will tell you that you need to do is to ask questions. And this might sound very implicit, right? But it's very, very easy to forget to ask questions. And in data engineering, in the data space, it's particularly important. So I can give you an example. There's really two types of data engineers or data ops professionals. You know, you're a data person. It doesn't really matter. Let's establish that you're a data engineer, and either you're very tech focused or you're very business focused, right? So the problem here that might occur is the tech focused data engineer will go and build a massive, very potentially an impressive data platform. Let's say for streaming, self-serve, fancy compute. So imagine that someone's building this massive distributed system that can handle hundreds of terabytes of data, and you have real-time streaming, you have all these cool things. But then over here on the consumer side, you have some stakeholder, and let's imagine someone wants to know, let's say daily active users. Okay, so they want to do, the daily active users per month. If you built all of this and they only want to know this, in this scenario, that might be fine, right? So they can most likely go and figure this out from this system. But it's a lot of overhead with this based on this, because ultimately what could have been done is, it doesn't necessarily need to be some fancy streaming system, right? This could literally be, batch job per month, and the technology behind this could be quite, let's imagine now that it runs once per month, but it could also be aggregated on a monthly basis. But my point here is that if you need to answer this basic question, you don't need a V8 to walk to the fridge, right? So that's the first thing. But then this tech focused person might argue that, okay, we're building this platform so we can answer and manage any type of compute of any kind. But if most of the questions are of this nature, like, daily active user, or maybe they want to see, I don't know, um, churn monthly. They might want to see age groups, things like that on a monthly basis. Again, this is not real time. So why build a real time platform? So if you're not sure about this, you should be very careful about this part of things. And you do this by becoming really good at asking questions. So before you do this, before you even start doing this at all, you should inject yourself right over here. Whoop. And you should try and figure out, okay, let's write instead, who, what, and why. Who is the consumer? What are they consuming? And here we can also say how/why. How will they consume? And why do they want to consume this? Right? So you want to get to a point like this. And this is a good like approach to have. Who, what, how, and why. Equally, if you're a business focused person, you might be over here. You end up having a very clear vision of what needs to be answered over here, but you might lack the expertise to build the platform, right? And then equally, you're not seeking out other colleagues or etc., other engineers. If you don't seek them out in the right way, you won't be able to build this platform because you need equally their help, right? So then it becomes the other way around. And funny enough, it's the same story. Whoa. Right? It's the same thing here. Who, what, how, and why. So who the consumer is to these people, you explain it. You explain what they're consuming and how they're consuming it. You get together and you design the right platform and you inject yourself into that and you make it happen. So the best place to be is when you're a mix of both of these. So you need to be someone who can actually build the stuff. You need to have a pretty technical depth, or a width, a bandwidth to be able to find all these different problems, listening to all these different questions and needs, and go and design the right thing, and also make drawbacks if needed, but conscious drawbacks. So for example, if people are asking for real-time data but you don't have the setup to run real time, you could go against that and be like, well, actually isn't just hourly enough or even daily. There needs to be some counter reaction back and forth, and you can't just blindly obey. And a lot of people who are very, very tech focused and they don't very often dig into this. And what happens is, right, they build a really fancy platform, and then it ends up just costing tons of money and it doesn't lead anywhere because no one's using it. So that's why it's so important to ask questions. And that kind of brings us back to who, what, how, and why. Okay, so now let's establish that we have the data product in place, and we have this whole system running. And what tends to happen over time is that people they are maybe in the beginning very aware of what's going on in the process, right? So the data engineer, they process data into the platform, the data scientists consume it, they train and publish a model which the final product will run predictions on, and therefore everyone's involved and everyone's happy. But the thing that surprisingly is one of the biggest problems, right, is some type of data observability in terms of metrics. A lot of the times team will divert to logs. So for anyone who's not aware of data observability, this might sound strange, right? But one of the most simplest thing you can do to make sure that the feedback loop across these entities are working is to capture metrics and value metrics over logs. So this means that as you're running your system, in each one of these components, you need to track things like fail tests, data freshness, data completeness, data quality, etc., into some kind of data observability tool. That could be anything like Prometheus, Grafana, Datadog. There's tons of platform as a service tools around this, and you need to include the business users in that journey. So you should have some kind of data observability where all these things are gathered. So well, so that could be things like data observability around freshness, completeness, quality, in terms of this is deterministic based on the type of data you're ingesting, based on domain expertise, etc. And then once you have this in place, once you have established these, let's take these three very basic ones: freshness, completeness, and quality. Once you have those in some kind of data observability tool, where the metrics is the first class citizen, then you can start making alerts, alerts and notifications. And you can only really do this once you have established this. Sometimes people will go and create alerts and notifications based on logs from applications. So they will trigger an alert if they scrape a log that says error or something. This is highly inefficient, and it's almost impossible for someone on this end to understand what's happening. So you need to translate the applications and the processes that happen in this flow into clear metrics, into something clear in terms of like some type of dashboard in a data observability tool. Then you create your alerts and notifications around this. And when you get this, you all of a sudden get a feedback loop now, where when an alert happens, you can correlate it to historical values. And this is another important thing. With metrics, you can be historical. With logs, not so much. Well, you can, but it's very difficult. So it's much easier to look on historical behavior if you're capturing it as a metric versus a log. So this is, very concise, kind of straightforward, but make sure you have data observability in place, metrics over logs, then you build your alerts and notifications. Then you kind of achieve a self-healing process where you involve all members of this platform, and you need to make sure that you don't separate these things. You need to make sure that if this team sets up some freshness tests, that this team or part of the squad are aware of this and that it makes sense to them. Okay, and then we get to the final part, is that when you have established, you asked all the questions, you built a product, you have all the data observability and feedback loops in place, and then the real last big thing you really need to get in place is the context, right? So if this data product here represents what we were talking about before, imagine as you grow, right, you're going to start having multiple of these. So you're going to have one data product, another data product, and they are going to start to have dependencies across each other like this, but they are not aware of it. So this squad is building something that this squad also wants to use, but they're not aware of it. So they start doing stuff, in parallel to each other, and they're pushing it to the same platform. And to each squad or team, it all seems normal, right? Because they have the feedback loop with the business. They have a very well working system with alerts, etc., etc. But even now, uh, it seems like something's not going right. Like someone over here start noticing that, hey, we need data X to enrich our data set A. And we know that data set X, this squad over there, they already used it. So let's go grab it. And then they start asking these people, okay, so how does it work? Where is it documented? And then maybe they have a random Notion page or a Confluence page, and then they have their code, or they might just point to your code and they have nothing documented. And then you need to sit and reverse engineer their code base. And you might have been in this situation. And as you can imagine, this is very tedious, and it will most likely just let you go into circles and you won't be able to break free. So to solve this problem, the solution is a data catalog. So, what is a data catalog? Well, a data catalog is a place where you can establish data lineage and documentation very closely connected to your code. So, if your data models change, so does your documentation. So, here's a very small, stupid example where someone who's building a data product, they're creating some source tables, they're creating some star schema on top of that, and then they're done. And someone's consuming this star schema for, let's say model training or analytics or whatever. But then the new data product team comes into play. They realize that, hey, we need to build this new set of models, or we want to enrich potentially the data that's in this data mart. But now they can go and they can look at it and they can read about it, and it will have a description and it will have a data lineage. And this will really be the last nail in the coffin. Once you get this in place, then all of a sudden all these people just become connected, and they start becoming aware of each other's systems. And that's when you truly reach a point where you can actually do things like self-serve, or handing something over to somebody without having to worry that it's locked to one person and one person has domain expertise, and it's not guaranteed that the new joiner joining can understand it, because there will be something in place to do this. And there's plenty of tools around data cataloging that one can use, like for example, DBT has an open source one. Atlassian has one paid one. There's Unity Catalog that recently got open sourced. So there's plenty of options, but it's definitely something you need to consider and something you definitely need to have in your data platform. And many teams, many organizations will go on, build a lot of fancy tech, but they don't have a data catalog. They have no idea how to how things link together. Maybe more than a few people who have this knowledge in their mind, and then they leave, and then no one really knows. So remember this. I hope this has helped you, and I see you next time.